This is the Construction Leading Edge podcast with Todd DeWalt, providing the tools and resources to grow your leadership skills, grow your business, and grow your income. Now let's get started. Hey guys, Todd here. Welcome to episode 16 of the podcast. Hope you guys are doing well. Today we have an interview with a very interesting guy. His name is Brent Darnell. He's an international best-selling author and a leading authority on a topic that is becoming more and more important for folks in the construction industry. The onset of integrated project delivery, or IPD, and lean construction is requiring folks in the construction industry to become a little bit more connected with their emotions, more collaborative, and a little less robotic, a little more human. So Brent's going to talk to us about the topic of emotional intelligence. And Brent is the president of his own outfit, Brent Darnell International, which is a training and consulting company that maximizes construction companies' success by tapping into the, quote, soft skills or the emotional intelligence of their employees. He's written a few books. One of them is The People-Profit Connection, How Emotional Intelligence Can Maximize People Skills and Maximize Your Profits. He does training on leadership, emotional intelligence, energy, a variety of that stuff. And believe it or not, he's actually a construction guy. He has a degree in mechanical engineering and spent some time in the construction industry before going out on his own and focusing on emotional intelligence specifically, or maybe not exclusively, but specifically for folks in the construction industry. So some of the stuff we're going to talk about today, frankly, kind of blew my mind. We're going to talk about the neuroscience of emotions. We'll talk about energy. We'll talk about a few other things that are going to be very important for us. They're for folks in the construction industry. They're game changers, and they'll give us the edge as individuals in our careers, and they'll give us an edge in the competition to get more work. Brent talks about a few case studies of companies who have been able to land significant projects because of their ability to provide a good experience for their customers. So we'll jump into the podcast here in just a minute, but a couple of reminders. One thing that Brent did not get into the interview is that he wanted me to let everybody know that his Total Leadership Program comes to Georgia in February 2015. So if you're interested and you're in the state of Georgia, check out Brent's website, and up at the very top, as long as you listen to this episode before February of 2015, you'll see a black bar that has a place to click for more information. But Brent has a Total Leadership Program in Georgia in February 2015. So make sure to listen to the very end. I'm going to share a resource at the end that helped. What I've done is I've put together a resource that I think will help you, and basically it's 4 tools that I used to double a construction company in about 2 years. So I was able to grow the revenue of a construction company from about $4.5 million to $9 million a year and doubled the number of employees in 2 years. And I put together a one-pager. I think it's one page. Actually, it's 3 pages that has 4 of the tools that I use to do that. So I'll tell you how to get access to that at the end of the podcast. So here we go. Hope you enjoy this. All right. Well, today we have Brent Darnell with us. Brent is a construction guy from way back, and he has shifted his focus to where his full-time business is now teaching and writing on the subject of emotional intelligence. I'm going to let Brent talk more about his background here in just a moment. But Brent, how are you today, sir?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
Great. I'm really looking forward to the conversation. I think this is as we talked a little bit before we got started, this is a game changer. So why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself, about your background, and how in the world did a construction guy end up with a focus on emotional intelligence?
Yeah, it's well, I'm a mechanical engineer by education, Georgia Tech graduate, and started working in the business right out of school. Worked in it for about 20 years, except for about 3 years I quit and became a full-time actor and writer, and did a lot of theater and a lot of improvisational theater, some stand-up comedy, couple of low budget horrible movies, and I even had a role on In the Heat of the Night. I played a redneck auto mechanic drug dealer
Wow.
on In the Heat of the Night. So I couldn't make a living at that. Went back to project management, and then I had an opportunity to do this leadership development program for Skanska, this big Swedish contractor. Did that for 2 years. Absolutely loved it, and then decided, after the 2 years was up, I went back to Atlanta, and they wanted me to go back to project management. And I just saw a huge need there and started my own business. And then that was 12 years ago. So,
Interesting.
Yeah.
From mechanical engineering to acting to leadership training and project management. See, I'm pretty sure that I went to the University of Kentucky, and I'm pretty sure they tried to brainwash all the creativity out of us by third or fourth year.
Yeah, that's their goal, I think, is to just through peer pressure and one right answer, they beat the creativity and any vestiges of innovation out of us. And that's one of the things we teach is we teach people how to be more creative. And I use a lot of what I learned as an actor in the training. We do very little lecture. It's a lot of activity-based learning and gamification of learning and using applied improvisation to be able to take improv exercises and use it to get people to learn about different topics. So that it's served me well, and that's one thing I hope we can get back with some of the stuff that we do with more technical people is get that creativity and that innovation back.
Definitely. Well, let's start from the baseline and give us a definition of what is emotional intelligence.
Well, there's lots of definitions out there. My definition is understanding and managing your emotions and understanding and managing the emotions of others for the best outcomes. There's a lot of misconceptions about what it is. People say, well, that's just being nice to people, or it's touchy-feely and it's kumbaya, and it really isn't that at all. It's more based in neuroscience and physics. It's about how your brain works and how emotions affect even cognitive processes. And it's about physics. It's about energy, because emotions create energy, and energy affects outcomes of situations. So it's about managing those emotional states for not only the best outcomes with other people, but managing your own levels of stress and being able to understand when those things are happening to you and being able to take some action and be better that way as well.
So I heard you say some big things there, which probably have some heads spinning. One, you said emotional intelligence is about managing your own emotions.
Yes.
Which this could be mind-blowing to some people, but we can manage our emotions. We're not.
Absolutely.
So what you're saying is we're not a slave to our emotions.
No.
Secondly, that we can be aware of the emotions of others.
Yes.
And then we can manage both of those, both our emotions and manage how other people are responding to us. And then beyond that, you're saying that there's a science behind emotions, and it's based in science and physics.
Absolutely. This is all the stuff we're doing, which I think that's why emotional intelligence has not gone away, because neuroscience is verifying what we intuitively know to be true every single day.
All right, tell us a little bit. Give us an example of the science behind emotional intelligence.
Well, they can hook people up to these functional MRIs and look at what areas of the brain are excited when you're angry or when you're in different emotional states. And they can also look at regulation of those emotions. And they study things like meditation techniques and breathing techniques and mindfulness techniques and how that affects emotional management. And it's amazing what you can do with this whole concept of the mind-body connection and how emotions can affect so many other areas of your life. I mean, think about it this way. Here's a real simple example. When you're really upset about something, you get into this fight or flight, which is adrenaline and cortisol are pumped out, and your amygdala, which is the emotional center of your brain, is kind of taking over your brain. And there's a survival reason for that, because when you're being chased by a lion, you kick in that emotional part of your brain and you just are in fight or flight. Well, what happens when that happens is your prefrontal cortex, which is the thinking part of your brain, shuts down. So knowing that, and neuroscientists have verified that indeed does happen, think about it this way. You're in this state of stress. You can't think very clearly. You can't solve problems readily. So understanding those emotional states and how they affect other things, even cognitive processes, is pretty vital to your success, I would think, to be able to manage those in such a way where you can take some breaths, get that stress under control, stop that amygdala from hijacking you, and be able to think clearly.
Awesome. Well, I definitely want to get into some practical stuff before we get done, maybe some strategies. So if you could walk us through a few situations of how to deal with things. But first, talk to us about, we're construction guys. Why should a construction leader, someone who's a project manager, project executive, superintendent, why should they care about emotional intelligence? What's in it for us?
Well, I get a call about once a week, and it usually goes something like this. Hey, Brent, I've got this guy, and he's a great guy, one of our top performers. He's a real driver, but he is just pissing everybody off. People don't want to work for him. They don't want to work with him. Our clients are saying, we really don't want that guy on our project. And I think there's certainly a spectrum of those guys in the industry, but generally the people that are drawn to this industry are those hard-charging, driving people. And we need those people, and we need those skills, because otherwise nothing would ever get done, because this is a really complicated industry, and projects are so complex, and you need those hard chargers, you need those drivers. But what we've learned is, if those guys can learn to balance those great emotional competencies like self-regard, that confidence and assertiveness and independence, with things like better emotional self-awareness and understanding how people are perceiving them, and better empathy skills and better relationship skills, their efficacy goes up tremendously, because they're able to do both. They're able to solve those problems, charge in and get things done, and maintain and enhance relationships with clients internally and externally. So it really gets to bottom line results. So it's about performance. It's about improving performance, and we're all about performance, and that's how we talk about these programs in terms of improving performance. And this typical profile of these sort of alphas, I think, are the root cause, or at least a contributing factor to many of the industry issues, like industry image and safety and teamwork and communication and stress. I mean, I think these typical profiles really relate to those industry issues. And when you start looking at better emotional management and being able to handle these things in a better way, in a more positive way, those industry problems are diminished or sometimes go away. And everybody's looking for a competitive advantage. So improve your performance, get rid of those things that contractors are normally known for, and people will love you, and they'll want to do want you to do all their projects for them.
So this, by focusing on and improving our emotional intelligence, it's going to move the needle, make us stand out to our team, to our clients, and it's going to affect the bottom line.
Absolutely. And we've seen it over and over. There's one company we're working with. They're literally taking every single person through this program. We're working with 120 people this year, and 46 of those are foremen and general foremen that are running concrete crews. And they figure, those are the guys that are interacting with subs, they're interacting with owners' reps, and those are the guys that are actually getting a lot of the work done. And they want them to be better with this dimension of the business. And they've also attributed, they were third actually on the bid, on the numbers on this one project. So they really worked on creating emotional connections and connecting with the selection committee. And they actually got the project, even though they were third on the bid list. And that was a $45 million job they got, which they would have had no hope of getting before. And since then, they've given them a $33 million addition. So they've gotten, close to $80 million worth of work. They attribute this program and this way of being and this culture of connecting and relationship directly with getting that project.
Yeah, I would say that's a definite impact to the bottom line.
Yes.
Talk a little bit about how emotional intelligence ties in with some of the changes that we're seeing in the construction industry in the way of IPD and lean construction.
Well, yeah, I mean, look what the industry's doing, and I think the reason we're going to these more collaborative construction delivery methods is the other one isn't working so well.
Right.
And so the owners picked up a few bargains during the recession, and really just really bottom line pricing and bottom line margins, but margins are creeping back up now. And I think more owners are going to value selections instead of just numbers. And this is really cool. I was at an AGC conference and they had a panel on owners, and they had MD Anderson Cancer Center and they had Disney as two of the owners on the panel. And there was a bunch of contractors there, and they said, how do you select contractors to build your stuff? And everybody's poised and ready to write down like, well, you have to be under 2% margin, or we need at least 100 years experience combined, or they're ready for the number. And what Disney and MD Anderson said was, well, it's just a feeling we get.
Oh, wow.
It's just a feeling we get. And when we debrief and when we see all of those proposal presentations, afterward, when we start discussing, we just know the contractor to choose because it's so evident to us because of how they interacted with each other and how they interacted with us, that we're going to have fun and have a sort of a joyful experience these next 2 years to build this project with these guys.
Wow. Yeah. And I want to talk about the difference between a transaction and an experience before we're done today.
Absolutely.
Well, I'm convinced that this is a big deal. And speaking of lean construction, I did an episode on the podcast, I think it was episode 14, on lean construction basics, which was very interesting. So IPD and lean construction are driving the need for emotional intelligence. Customers are expecting it. As you mentioned, now it's not just about bottom dollar. There's more money available, and owners are more about the experience and not just about low cost. So all that tells me that this is definitely a big topic. Tell us about some of the common mistakes that you're seeing in the industry, that's actionable that we can change for the better.
Well, number one is thinking that it's all about price. It is just not. I mean, again, you want to talk about neuroscience backing this up? There's a great book called Thinking Fast and Slow. This guy Kahneman won a Nobel Prize for his research in how people buy stuff. And what he found out was, much to everybody's surprise, was it had very little to do with cost. Most purchasing decisions are made with emotion and memory and ease of choice. Those are the three things that come into play. So if you think you're going to get more work by shaving off a 0.1% off your margins, or finding out some little new twist to do something and save little minuscule amounts that's going to give you that competitive advantage, you're barking up the wrong tree. So that's the first thing I have trouble convincing contractors of is, guys, this stuff is real. It's about making those connections. And they say, no, they're just going to choose the low bidder anyway. So I really don't care about that. So it's about, again, going from just a transaction to creating a positive emotional experience. Because think about this in terms of a service company, and let's pick Disney again. Is Disney the cheapest place to go?
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not. I bought a cheeseburger there at a conference, and it was $20. I didn't even get fries with that burger, right? So it's an expensive place to be, but they're packed. And why are they packed? because they create such powerful emotional experiences with children that they bring their children to Disney. They demand to go back, and then when they have kids of their own, they bring those kids to Disney. So creating those positive emotional experiences, and my question to these contractors is, what emotional experiences are you creating on your projects right now as we speak? Are you argumentative? Are you pulling out the contract every 2 days and saying, this is what we're giving you, and you can write me a change order for that? What emotional experiences are you creating? Is it a fun, joyful, wonderful place to come to work and collaborate and get this beautiful project built for the owner and the client? Or are you slogging through it and arguing? And is everything this negative, horrible crap that you're wading through? Because the next time that owner goes to make a choice, they're going to remember that. Maybe not even consciously, but they're going to think, what was my experience like? And they're going to choose accordingly. That goes for subcontractors as well. You start alienating your subs, you treat them like crap, you hold them contractually, their feet to the fire. They're going to think twice, and they'll put little factors on their bids to you down the road, right?
Yeah. I had this realization 7 or 8 years ago. Up until that point, I'd been on the contracting side, and then I was the owner's rep on a large project, and we had a situation. This was a 18-story, $100 million high-rise that I was working on as the owner's rep, and it was a concrete frame building. We were making early slab pours, and the superintendent, we were on the edge of a residential neighborhood, and the superintendent was just dead set to start pouring concrete at 5 o'clock in the morning. Well, at 4 o'clock in the morning, one morning, the tower crane lights lit up the entire neighborhood, and everybody got upset. And here we were. This was a senior living community, so we're trying to be part of the community. And we said, hey, dude, you can't do that. I understand what you're trying to do, but we can't light up the sky at 4 o'clock in the morning.
Right.
It's bad. And he said, okay, no problem. Well, 2 days later, the next pour, same thing happened. Same conversation. And he was so set on the result that he completely overlooked the importance of doing what we were asking him to do. So as you were saying that, I realized that this is a paradigm shift for contractors, is that probably a lot of us think that it's all about finished product.
Right.
And no matter what we have to do to get to that finished product, it's all about the built product. And what I'm hearing you say is that our customers nowadays are looking at the experience as well, that it is an experience as well as a finished product. Would you agree with that?
And even the ones that will not say that consciously, admit to that, subconsciously, that's still true, because they're human beings, and they're going to make those choices based on, again, more about emotions and memory than any other factors.
Now, I can imagine that some people are thinking, my world is about low bid. So talk to those people that are getting their contracts in a low bid competitive environment where the procurement guidelines overrule anything else and it's all about low bid. How does this play into, and how does this benefit those people?
Well, I get that. I understand that there are some markets that are purely price driven. I got that. I understand it. And my theory is, I would pay even more attention to these relationships and connections for hard bid stuff than even for negotiated stuff, because that's where your margins are going to be low and mistakes are going to be costly. And you want an owner that you like and trust, and they like and trust you, so that when you come across those things that may cost you a lot of money, you can collaborate and find a good answer, instead of just having this adversarial relationship because you say they're just going to pick the low bidder anyway, and then you have a mistake that maybe costs you your entire margin. Whereas if you had a great relationship and a lot of trust, you could maybe work something out to both of your advantage, in a situation like that. So I think it pays no matter what the work environment is. and what the project delivery method is, I think that, again, I think it works it's even more critical in those hard bid things, because that's when you need it the most, I think.
Yeah, I would agree. The last 3 years, the work I've been doing has been almost exclusively municipal hard bid work. And I've taken the approach, I've learned the hard way, that it's wise to build political capital or relationship capital when you get the opportunity, so that when those situations do come up, when it could go either way, it's a gray area,
Right.
then you've gone above and beyond when you could, and then you can come to your client maybe with hat in hand and say, hey, can we work this thing out? Mm-hmm. And my experience has been very positive with that, definitely. So I would definitely agree with that.
And again, that's a different set of skills. It's there is a skill to driving a job and getting results and getting things built, and this is just a different set of skills that can to add to your tool pouch that'll enable you to, when it's appropriate, to make those connections and work more collaboratively. And it doesn't mean that the superintendents I work with and these foremen, they're always afraid that I'm going to try to turn them into wimps. And I tell them, that's just not going to happen. We're just going to give you some more balance in your approaches, and so that you have more tools to use when you need to use them. Because, I understand that there's subs out there that you just have to get the whip out. They're just non-responsive. They're not very competent, and you have to babysit them, and you have to really hold their feet to the fire. I get that. I understand that. I've had to do it. But I always try the softer approach first with those guys, and try to get them to trust me. And then if there's issues, they're more likely to come to you and say, my boss isn't giving me the resources for this project, instead of just putting you off, and, they're not performing and you don't really know why.
Sure. Instead of getting I'll be there next week or the week after or something like that over and over and over.
Yeah. And I've had those guys. And finally, I figured, if those guys are doing that to me, I haven't developed enough trust so that they're going to tell me I'm screwed. I've taken on way too much work. I don't have the crews. Yeah. And once you get that, then you can solve the problem, right? Then you can say, okay, how can we work this out? And if you are that open with them and that connected to them, they're likely going to put the resources on your project, as opposed to the guy that's kicking their ass, writing a bunch of letters to their offices, demanding all kinds of stuff, holding their checks. Which job would you man up? The guy that's helping you, or the guy that's making you look like an idiot?
Good point. You mentioned some tools in the tool pouch. Give us some strategies, some tactics, some tools that we can use like tomorrow to improve.
One book I recommend a lot for the alphas is a book by Marshall Goldsmith called What Got You Here Won't Get You There. And it's about, again, a different set of skills to get, that hard charging, driving way of being will get you to a certain level in your career. And then you'll probably stagnate if you keep doing the same thing. So this is about these different set of skills. That's a great book recommendation, a very easy read. And then we have a website that's basically an online version of these year-long courses that we do with people, these leadership courses. And, the courses we do, it's not only emotional intelligence, but it's a mental and physical peak performance. So we talk a lot about nutrition and stress and sleep and exercise and how that affects performance. Not only emotional performance, but just cognitive performance and how you're thinking and if you have any energy left at the end of the day. So it's a very much of a holistic approach, a combination of the emotional and the physical. And we have this website that's an online version of that, and it's a pay site, but it's really cheap. It's like $5 a month, and it's called Change You, and that's change then dash the letter u.com. And there's evaluations on there. There's resources to improve. There's even an accountability partner and mentor match that you can participate in. Lots of online evaluations. There's a stress evaluation called the body battery inventory. You can download our workbook and resource book and actually create development plans on the areas you want to work on. I mean, it's pretty comprehensive.
Wow, sounds like some great stuff there. I appreciate you sharing that. I'll make sure and put a link to that in the notes from this call that'll be on the website.
Yeah.
Let me walk you through a couple of situations. Let's say you have your boss. You have a boss walks into your office, and obviously the guy he's irate about something, and you're not sure what it's about, and you have a few things running through your mind. It could be about this, it could be about you, it could be about someone else. You don't know what the deal is, but this guy's obviously irate. Mm-hmm. What should we or what can we do in that situation?
Well, the first thing I would say is breathe. We teach a lot of sort of breathing techniques, meditation techniques, mindfulness techniques as part of this physical part. And this has actually been proven by Harvard Medical School about this relaxation response and how it affects your physiology. So the first thing I would do is start breathing, taking some nice deep breaths. And then what usually happens with those guys that have taken off like a rocket ship is if you just are quiet and really attentive and listening, it's almost like watching them run out of steam or watching a balloon deflate. But if you start sort of arguing back with them, it's sort of like jujitsu. You use their momentum against them, right? So being quiet, listening attentively, maybe asking some more questions. Tell me more about that. Tell me what's going on. Like I said, it's watching a balloon deflate. They'll eventually run out of steam. They'll calm down, and then you can have a pretty good conversation. Whereas if you try to shut them up, or you try to defend something, or it just escalates. It's sort of like it's an escalation of violence, and it gets higher and higher and higher. So to de-escalate, you just have to be quiet and breathe, and maybe ask some questions.
So ask some questions, make sure that they feel heard.
Yes,
and be quiet.
Yeah, and guess what? That takes emotional self-awareness, number one, and it takes empathy, which are usually two of the lowest scores on any group I've ever worked with in the industry. Those are usually two of the lowest scores.
All right, let's talk about emotional self-awareness. Mm-hmm. What are some exercises or some things we can do to become more aware of what's going on?
Well, we recommend, and this is good for just about anybody in any situation, but it really helps with the self-awareness, is set aside some time for personal reflection every single day. And that could be in the morning or in the evening, but it's got to be quiet time, and it's got to be just for you. You can call it prayer time, meditation time, me time, time out, pondering time, whatever you want to call it, but just to sit and be and sort of go through your day and reflect and see, what could I have done differently there? But you're not doing any real planning. You're not doing any problem solving. You're just sort of reflecting. And the other thing you can do is we recommend meditation as a way to increase emotional self-awareness, because meditation is about sort of checking in and letting yourself understand what's going on with you in those present moments. And so meditation is another good way to increase your self-awareness, and just become an observer and see how you interact with the world and how the world interacts with you. And that takes a lot of just stopping and observing, like, what's going on? What's going on with me? What's going on with these other people? You can do this as you're walking down the sidewalk. Just start noticing things, and you'll figure out that a lot of this stuff relates to how you're feeling and how you're interacting with the world. That increases your self-awareness.
Interesting. Yeah, I can see where we, as an industry, would typically score pretty low in those areas.
Yeah.
What about empathy? That seems like a tougher one to to grow? What can we do to increase our empathy?
That can be tough. We recommend, there's one exercise we recommend that's I've gotten a lot of good feedback on, and that's that go home at the end of the workday, sit down with your spouse, turn off the TV, get rid of the kids if you got kids, find that quiet time with your partner, and ask them to tell you about their day. Now, when they're doing that, you can't offer any suggestions. You can't solve any problems for them. You can't tell them what they should have done. All you're thinking is, what were they feeling during that particular moment in their day? And that's all you can offer during this exercise is, wow, that must have made you angry. Or you must have got your feelings hurt then. Or, boy, that must have just been exhausting. And you have to sort of verify that that's indeed what they're thinking and feeling and during that in their day. So it's a good verification. And, boy, talk about connecting with the other person. And this is a sort of a male-female thing as well. The men, especially the men that are engineers and contractors, they tend to want to solve problems. So they tend to want to solve everything. And a lot of times people just want to be listened to and understood. And that translates not only to your partner or your spouse, but guess what? That translates to owners reps, architects reps, subcontractors. When they come in and they're irate about something and they're upset about something, most of the time, if you just listen and tell them that you understand what's going on with them, that's all they need. They don't necessarily want you to solve their problem. They just want to connect in some way. And I think we've lost that. We're so busy with getting a building built and trying to solve everything that we've lost that sense of connection with other human beings.
Well, I can say, let me tell you a story. I've been married 17 or 18 years now, and about 5 years in, I was a classic problem solver. When my wife told me something about work or whatever the situation was, I just went into action mode.
That's right.
Oh, that's easy. Here's what, do this, do this, do this. Well, one night at home, she was telling me about something that happened, and I heard these magical words come out of my mouth. How did that make you feel?
Wow.
And her eyes lit up and she swelled up, and I thought, wow, I've stumbled into a gold mine.
That's right.
And it was so powerful, and I've seen that with customers as well. I mean, this is with male construction type customers, guys who are owners reps. Generally, like you said, when they get upset about something, I've learned to ask myself, how does this make them feel?
Right.
There's something. We're dealing with emotional issues. These are not, people don't get upset about concrete and rebar and steel and air handling units. They get upset about emotions because there's some impact to them, either fear or they feel like they're going to look bad or they're losing something. So, yeah, definitely, I can definitely vouch for the tell me how that made you feel exercise. Yeah. And that gets us outside of ourselves, and it makes us, I can see where that would definitely make us more open to how other people feel. And that's great advice there.
And here's the thing that the alpha guys have told me. They said, I always thought empathy was like wimpy, like giving in. And I tell them, don't confuse empathy with sympathy. You're not just giving in to people. You're truly understanding how they feel. And for alphas, they tell me that, when you really do that, it kind of gives you're in a position of power. Because if you truly understand what's going on, and think about that in terms of like a negotiating session. If your empathy is well honed and you truly understand what the motivations are and how these people are feeling about whatever you're talking about, that gives you a pretty big advantage. So it's about utilizing these skills, again, for the best outcomes. I'm not saying to use it in a manipulative way, but I'm saying that the more you're in tune with your feelings and the feelings of others, you make better decisions and you make better choices in those moments that give you better outcomes, and outcomes that usually either save enhance or further that relationship. So, we make these decisions a lot, but it seems to be a lot of times at the sacrifice of the relationship.
Yeah, and I can see where this is very powerful in a sales and business development relationship.
Sure.
And when it's done properly, you get to the root needs of your customer, and you come up with win-win solutions, and they feel great about giving you the work, giving
Sure.
you the contract. And
Absolutely. And
so it's,
given the choice between you and the guy that's pulling the contract out and saying, that's your problem, write me a change order, as opposed to a guy that's going to be cooperative and help him and make it more collaborative, which one would you choose if given
yeah,
choice? I mean,
absolutely. Let's talk a little bit about how we can provide a better experience for our customers
well,
as contractors.
think about it this way. I'll tell you a quick 2 stories. These are both true stories. Walked into a contractor's office to talk about my business to them. The receptionist doesn't even look up. I'm in this stark office with a coffee table and a really beat up couch with nothing, no artwork on the walls, no books, no nothing. Finally, after about a minute, she looks up and she goes, "Can I help you?" Like, like, I hate you being here. Why aren't you interrupting me? I said, "Yeah, I'm here to see John." And then she goes, well, sit down and I'll call him. So, I'm there for a few more minutes looking at nothing, horrible gray walls. Finally, John comes. We walk down the hall. Everybody I pass in the company, they don't look up. They don't acknowledge me. They don't say hello. I go to this conference room, another gray, horrible, windowless conference room with things like accessories on the wall, like there's no I in team and, things like that. And he says, "You want some coffee?" I say, "Sure." Well, he says, "It's in the kitchen. Go get it." So I walk down the hall. I go to the kitchen. I pour me some coffee in a styrofoam cup. And then I got the 2 canisters. You know the 2 canisters I'm talking about?
Oh, yeah.
The creamer and the sugar, right? So I put the creamer in, and the coffee has been cold for hours. So the creamer clumps up on the top. And so I dump that in the sink. I walk back to the meeting, and then we start the meeting like right away. Right? That's one experience, right? So then I'm in Finland. I'm going to Skanska Oys at Skanska's Finnish offices. So I walk in. This receptionist comes around from her desk, says, "You must be Mr. Darnell. We're so glad to have you here. Please have a seat. I'll go get Jan. He's expecting you. Welcome. Can I get you anything?" And I say, "No, I'm good." Sit down. Beautifully appointed lobby. Beautiful artwork from local artists on the walls that they get for free, by the way. And on the coffee table are these beautiful architectural books of all their projects. So I'm thumbing through there and seeing all these beautiful projects they built in Russia and in Finland and Estonia. And so then Jan comes in and he gets me and he goes, "Oh, we're so happy to have you here. Please come on, let's go to our conference room." And everybody I pass in the hall looks up and greets me. "Hello, how are you? It's nice to have you here." Something, right? So then we go in the conference room, beautiful conference room, more artwork, lots of windows, because in Finland it gets pretty dark and there's lots of windows anyway. And in walks these 2 young interns with 2 silver trays. One has a silver coffee pot on it with a silver creamer with cream in it and a silver sugar bowl with sugar cubes in it. On the second tray is a big plate of petit fours and cookies and cakes and all these beautiful things, right? So they sat down and he said, "Would you like some coffee?" And I said, "I would love some coffee." They bring out real ceramic cups that are branded, by the way, with Skanska. So we pour the coffee. It's beautiful, rich, hot coffee. Put a little cream in there. Have a little petit four. And then he says to me, "How's your stay in Helsinki so far? What have you done?" "Oh, I went to this concert the other night." "Oh, you've got to go to the opera," he said. "We built this building, and I want you to see it." And he says to the intern, "Get him a couple of tickets for tonight for the opera." And he says, what else have you done? And let me tell you some other things to make sure you do before you leave. And if you need any help, call us and let's talk about it. And so we talked probably 15 minutes about just my trip and things to do in Finland and just whatever. And then we start the meeting. Now, which company would you rather do business with?
Oh, no doubt. It's a no-brainer.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
Unfortunately, the first company sounds like most contractors' offices, at least the ones I've worked in.
And then go into a trailer on a project. I went into a trailer on the project. They had no idea who I was. And finally, I'm just waiting for someone to acknowledge me, and I'm there literally for 5 minutes. And people are running around and looking at drawings and doing all kinds of stuff. And finally, somebody looks up and says, "You want to close that damn door?" And I said, "Oh, I'm sorry." I closed the door. And I'm thinking,
where's your hard hat?
Yeah, that's right. So I'm thinking, like, he doesn't know who I could be the head of all the owners or company or something, They have no idea who I am. So I'm saying, pay attention to those details because they create impressions. And impressions create those emotional memories that people use to make future decisions.
Wow, that's a big one. So our job as contractors is not just to complete a project, but from wherever we're at in the organization, we can influence the experience that our customers are having, and that is a huge decision-making factor.
You bet.
Is that what I'm hearing you say?
You bet. And the companies we're working with, they get that, and they're getting tons of work without bidding. Where it's possible, they're just getting the next projects. This one that was 45 million, then another 33 million. There's another story they tell where they got a little bitty, like $10 million or something for this hospital, and they just got a $200 million addition without bidding.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Wow. Last thing I'd like you to talk about, you mentioned earlier energy and the connection between our emotions and our energy. I've heard a little bit about energy, but tell me more about that.
Yeah, there's a company called HeartMath, and they actually have a machine in their offices that measures emotional energy. And what they found is the emotional energy can be actually measured. It's an electromagnetic field up to 5 feet away from your body.
Whoa.
So whatever emotional state you're in, that's what you're giving off. That's what people are picking up, whether they're conscious of it or not, whether they're aware of that or not. That's what they're picking up and feeling. And there's these things we have called mirror neurons. So when I'm experiencing an emotion and I'm in contact with you or close proximity to you, your mirror neurons light up and match my mirror neurons. So I'm actually changing your physiology by the emotional state that I'm in. So we are connected so beyond anything that we could conceive in a conscious way. There's a connection there, whether you want it to be or not. So your emotional states actually affect the physiology of the people around you. So you create that energy. And so again, what emotional states are you in during these projects, which is mostly being hurried and anxious and angry and fearful, and and you can feel it when you walk into a project in a trailer. You can feel that energy. And, I mean, think about it this way. Have you ever walked into a room and something real tense was going on and everybody kind of stopped? You could feel that energy, right? You could say the tension was so thick you could cut it with a knife.
Right.
That's that emotional energy that you feel. And we actually have one of the HeartMath instruments that measures something called heart rate variability. And this is not a new concept. It's been around since the 60s, and they measured heart rate variability to look at heart health and also stress levels. So we can hook people up and take them through different emotional states, and we can see it in real time up on the screen change from like a positive state to a negative state back to a positive state within less than a minute.
Wow, that's amazing.
It's really cool, and it really freaks out like superintendents that I hook up. I always ask for the biggest skeptic, and then I'll hook them up and I'll take them through like usually they'll be a little nervous, so they'll be in a negative emotional state, and then I'll say, okay, close your eyes, take some deep breaths, and think of things you're thankful for and grateful for, which is a very positive emotional state to be in. States like love, appreciation, gratitude, those are all positive emotional states. And usually within about 30 seconds, they will shift the thing and it'll go into this green, like high heart rate variability state.
Wow. So what can we do to measure our energy, and then what can we do to manage that state? If we recognize we're negative, what can we do? Maybe you just told us, but what are some strategies we can do to go positive?
Breathing is a big deal. We teach a lot about proper breathing. We tend to breathe. We tend to use about the top 1/3 of our lungs. So proper breathing goes a long way into emotional management. So it's about keeping an eye on your breath. And if you feel yourself restricting your breath from focusing or from an emotional state, it's about taking those deep breaths, and it kind of tricks your brain into going to a relaxed state. So that's one thing you can do that's really easy to do, is keep an eye on your breathing. And when you find yourself breathing shallow or breathing rapidly, you can just stop, take some nice deep breaths, and you can go into this relaxation mode in like 10 breaths or less. The more you do it, the easier it is to do that. And then, of course, self-awareness is the other key, and that's about daily reflection and being able to tap into what's going on with you in the context of what you're feeling, whether you're stressed or not, whether you're tired or not, those kind of states that you can kind of identify and then take time to recover. And recovery can be deep breaths. It can be take a walk. It can be listen to some music. It can be take out your phone and look at some pictures of your kids or your spouse, or there's lots of ways to recover. And on Change You, there's a thing called the body battery inventory, and it kind of it evaluates things that are charging your battery and then things that are depleting your battery, and it gives you lots of recovery ideas to be able to recover from those states. But the biggest thing in terms of stress and in terms of those negative emotional states is gratitude. Gratitude, things that you're thankful for and grateful for, that'll shift that energy pretty quickly.
That's what I've heard. I've heard one piece of advice from a few different people have said that one of the biggest things that changed their life for the better was they started a gratitude journal, and every night before they go to bed, they would spend a few nights just writing things that they're grateful for.
Right. And you can have a gratitude partner and say, we're gonna email each other 3 things we're grateful for every single day.
Awesome. That's a great idea.
That's another one of the things in our workbook, in our resource book, is just get a gratitude partner. And you can always find things to be thankful for.
Yeah. Wow. Well, wow. This has been amazing. We're out of time. We're coming up on an hour almost already. And I could talk about this stuff for hours, but it sounds like you've got a lot of great content available on your website. But before we get into that, is there anything else that you feel like we should cover before we wrap it up?
Just that if you're skeptical of this work and this concept, it's so cool to be skeptical. I used to fight that, but I think it's really healthy to be skeptical, and wherever you are, that's where you need to be. But I would encourage you. There's a video on my homepage, BrentDarnell.com, called "For the Skeptics," and every time I get a testimonial from these programs we do, it starts off with "I was skeptical." So it's natural. It's fine. Just do your homework and figure out the validity of this stuff. Don't trust what I say. It's real. It's measurable. It can make a big difference in your personal and professional life, and for businesses, it can make a difference in your bottom line. So check it out and do some Google searches. There's lots of good data, good research behind emotional intelligence and business results and personal results. So that would be the one thing I would say is if you're kind of blowing this off and you're skeptical, you're in good company, because I was skeptical in the beginning of this work. I thought, how can you really improve stuff like that? But we found a way to do it, and it does work.
Wow. Yeah, it's science. And we're not talking about, this is not like mythical, it's not magic, it's neuroscience. It's
Exactly.
the way that our brains are wired. We are predictable systems, and it's just nature. So, man, this has been amazing, and I really appreciate it. If people want to connect with you and get your material, where should they go?
Well, BrentDarnell.com with 2 L's is a great resource to start. There's lots of cool videos. There's a page you can, if you wanted to take an emotional intelligence evaluation. There's a page of all my books. I've written The People Profit Connection, which was written for the construction industry. It talks about this typical emotional profile and the contributing factor to all of these industry issues, and some solutions in there as well. We have a whole program called Primal Safety that's outlined in there that uses emotional approaches to safety.
Wow.
We've got I have a series of books called the Tough Guy books, which is relationship skills for tough guys, stress management, time management, life balance for tough guys, and communication and presentation skills for tough guys. So those are available. All those are available on Amazon as Kindle books or Nook books, or ebooks or regular books. I've got another book called The Tao of Emotional Intelligence, which teaches emotional intelligence, and there's an app associated with that as well called with the same name, The Tao of Emotional Intelligence. What else? There's Change You. That's the change dash the letter u.com. Again, sign up for that. You can evaluate yourself. There's an emotional evaluation, a physical evaluation, a stress evaluation, lots of resources, a series of short videos, written resources, audio resources, and podcasts, all ways to improve. And then there's a mentor match and accountability partner match. And we give back. There's a few charities that we give the profits. We give back to these charities, and we're making this available to a lot of colleges and universities, to their technical students. All the students get this for free. And we're hoping the alumni will step up and sign up as a mentor to some of these schools. So we're working with Penn State. We're working with Auburn. We're working with, I think, Baylor, a couple of schools out in Texas. But we're just sort of starting this, and we're still in kind of the beta version of Change You. So that was the other thing I would encourage you to do. If you find some stuff you want changed, or stuff that isn't working right, to just notify me and let us get it fixed.
Wow. Well, Brent, you've obviously spent an incredible amount of time researching this topic. You've put together so much content and training, and I really appreciate all the time you've put into this, and thank you for focusing on the construction industry. Obviously, this transcends industries, but being a construction guy and staying in the construction industry, I appreciate that. So thank you for everything you do, and for being on the podcast again. So to find out more, go to BrentDarnell.com, go to change-u.com. On Twitter, your Twitter handle is?
At Brent Darnell.
Awesome.
And I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Facebook. Just contact me and connect with me. And I got a blog. I got a weekly blog that's out that you can sign up for on my website. So check it out.
Awesome. Thanks again. I'll have links to all that stuff in the notes from this call. And I appreciate the time, Brent.
Thank you, Todd. It's been a pleasure.
All right. Well, I hope you got something out of that interview. I know I certainly did. I had no idea about energy, about the neuroscience behind it. So good stuff there. Put that into practice. To get more information on this, go to Brent's website, BrentDarnell.com. If you want to get access to those links, I'll have some brief show notes at constructionleadingedge.com/016. This is episode 16. Also, I mentioned at the beginning of the podcast some tools that I'd use to double a construction company. If you want to download a 3-pager that has a list of 4 of the tools that I use to double a constructioner's revenue and size, go to constructionleadingedge.com/4 tools. 4 tools. Constructionleadingedge.com/4 tools, and you'll be able to download that. Those are tools that I used. They weren't the only tools that I used, but they were some of the key tools that I used to grow the construction company. Hope it'll help you. It certainly helped me. So, until next time.